Welcome to the Money GPS. You came here for the truth, so let me unveil that for you. It's imperative that we look at the consumer. The consumer makes up 70% of the economy. When there is no consumer or an apprehensive consumer, we have problems in the economy, and that will be the first thing we will discuss. The second thing is inflation, and of course, how that directly impacts what people spend their money on, because they might still spend, but what are they buying? The third thing is that China is slowing down despite the stimulus efforts that they've put in. Does that mean that they go full pedal to the metal? I will show you the stats and all of that and more. Let's begin by taking a look at this. For 40 years, sharp drops in the University of Michigan Consumer Sentiment Index have preceded either recession or sharp slowdowns in economic activity. At this time, and this time will not be different. Respect the cycle on the way up and the way down. So if I zoom in over here, you could see it for yourself. University of Michigan Consumer Sentiment Index, 3-month moving average, GDP and recessions. Take a look here. When we get down to this zone, we can watch what occurs time and time again. As we see that dip, okay, same thing happens over and over again. We watch the consumer, okay, you can see that when we go, even these little blips here, when we get this sort of activity slowing, purchasing, and so on, we end up in a slowdown of some sort in the economy or a recession altogether. So that's number one. That's primary. Inflation tops Americans' list of biggest problems facing the country. Percentage who say that each of the following is, you could see right here, very big problem is on top of the list, inflation. And so you're looking at this right now. This happens to be a Pew survey that was done, but you see this all over the place and you know what's happening. But to completely reverse that, to completely throw you off, you can see two of the exact opposite indicators. Composite sentiment indicator signals a buy, and essentially just when there's so much bearishness that it gets to these levels, these extreme levels, usually in the next 4 weeks, it tends to turn around. And then we have Goldman Sachs sentiment indicator, essentially showing us that the positioning in terms of, cash, in terms of where it's invested, leverage, margin, all these different things. When you see this, not just in this particular indicator, but in others, it just shows us that it's overdue for a reversal. That doesn't mean that it's going to reverse. Okay, please understand that. All it tells us is that historically, when we get a little bit oversold or in the opposite direction overbought, it tends to reverse. Here we have oil giant Aramco reports record first quarter as oil prices soar. You know what's going on. You see the prices of gasoline. You see what's happening with the barrel of oil. Last time I checked, WTI crude was at $110 a barrel. Record high gas prices slash U.S. spending by $9 billion a month. So you see it there. Record high prices. Consumers do not buy other stuff. If they've got to buy the gasoline because they have to get to work because they're moving around, they have less disposable income. ERCOT again asks Texans to conserve power after numerous generators fail amid strong energy demand. Be prepared for shortages of not just food, but energy as well. What are you doing today to make a difference for yourself, for your family, in terms of food, in terms of energy? Put that in the comments below. This is basically just saying that NATO pledged open-ended military support for Ukraine as Finland hailed its historic bid to join the alliance, and Sweden's ruling party said it backed a joint membership application. So you could see that more money will be spent in this area. You know that. At the same time, that means that this can be prolonged for a long period of time. And that, of course, means we could be in for a world of hurt. Crude oil, of course, all the products made of that crude, gasoline, and so on. Look at what happens with transportation. Understand the dilemma that we are dealing with as an individual who may not be directly related, we might be indirectly related to all of the different factors that are happening today. Supply chain, Russia, Ukraine, the Federal Reserve, all the money printing, just crop failures, export bans, which we'll talk about more. It's crazy. Goldman's blank find says the US is at a very, very high risk of recession. It's not baked in, and policymakers have a narrow path. Says that the Fed has been responding well to historic price increases. I don't know what he's talking about, but anyway. So let's look at China. China's economy contracts sharply as lockdowns wreak havoc. I've been showing you this all along. I've been saying, and not that I'm not some sort of soothsayer or oracle, but you could see right now, if you do lockdowns, if you basically don't allow people to go out there and spend, they can spend, they don't spend, and as a result, the economy weakens. Industrial production drops 2.9%, retail sales plunge 11.11%, mortgage rates lowered, while PBOC kept their key rate unchanged. So we're trying to get that stimulus out there. They're trying to do what they can. But if the streets are empty, not much going on, is there? Some have said in order to essentially cool things down, cool the inflation down, they are using the lockdowns in this manner. I don't know, but it's interesting. China keeps key interest rate unchanged despite sharp economic slowdown. PBOC rolled over maturing policy loans without injecting funds. Isn't that interesting? Isn't that really interesting what's happening here? Very different situation than we're seeing all around the world. Now take a look here. The industrial weakness, factory output fell the most since early 1990s. How unbelievable is this? Just think about that. Okay, you look at the drop. It's not a big, crazy drop. But when do you see it in the negative? Okay, 2020. All right, sure. But never, ever before. Sri Lanka stumbles towards its first default on foreign debt. Watch for other countries to be in the same situation, but at the same time, you've got a problem because what we are seeing right now is, in fact, political upheaval, social unrest, just seeing this all over the place. And yeah, it's going to happen in an area like Sri Lanka before it happens maybe in the UK, but every domino will fall. Before the export ban, India was expected to be one of the top 10 wheat exporters for the 2022-23 crop season. Removing all or part of India's expected wheat exports creates a massive hole on the global supply and demand. Wheat prices will rise further and quickly. I have been talking about this all along. To anybody that was getting into this in one way, shape, or form, kudos to you, because I'm sure you've made quite a bit of money as I've been covering this here. You can see that. Okay, it's not the biggest exporter, but it is significant. Okay, just look at that. It's just below Ukraine. And this happens to be the actual document itself from India's government. Just saying basically, look, there's a spike. We need to talk about the food security of India and the neighboring countries. We are going to make sure that this right here doesn't get out of hand. We're going to stop the exports and so on. India's wheat production is set to fall after rising for 6 years. So continuously more and more. Now you have that drop. The government's basically just saying, hey, we are just going to, right now, we don't know what's going to happen. We need to feed our people. We need to make sure that the chaos doesn't spread. And as a result, no exports. Okay. You know, I always have more data to cover, but all I'm going to say is your food supply, you personally, get that under control. If that means you got to buy a whole bunch of beans and rice and pasta, do it. If that means, you grow a garden in your backyard, do it. Do whatever it takes. Okay. This is so key right now. I can't believe we're in 2022. We see what's happening with the economy. We see the writing on the wall. The consumer isn't there. And people are worried. I see the influencers telling people to buy, I don't even know the stock, these ridiculous stocks, telling them to buy that stock when some people are not going to be able to eat. It's crazy. And they'll use the title recession, stock market crash, housing crash. There's fire on the image. Money is being fallen from the sky. And then at the end of it, they tell you the dollar cost average. And that's the solution. You're going to be okay.